Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inflectra's webinar on how to build an AI-powered robot for mining Salesforce contacts from email signatures using Rapise. We're joined today by Denis Markovtsev, our Senior Software Architect and Rapise Guru. My name is Taya, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Today, you're joining us to learn about using Rapise in conjunction with Salesforce, but I thought I'd give you a high-level overview of the key features of Rapise to put this whole webinar into context. With Rapise, you can automate the testing of desktop, web, and mobile applications, as well as APIs. Rapise offers code-free test automation through Rapise Visual Language, or RVL, but it also has a full JavaScript test editor. Rapise has a learn and go functionality for rapidly creating test scripts. It supports data-driven testing using Microsoft Excel spreadsheets or SQL databases. But most importantly, as you will see today, Rapise is a leader in testing complex business applications such as Salesforce. For a complete list of Rapise's capabilities, I recommend you visit our website at www.inflectra.com/Rapise. In addition, feel free to check out our newest white paper called 10 Features Every Codeless Test Automation Tool should offer that features Rapise. You can find this and other white papers on our website under white papers. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Denis.
Thank you for the introduction there. How to build an AI-powered robot for mining Salesforce contacts from email signatures using Rapise. So this is a very long title of this webinar. So let's try to parse and unwind it and explain what it really means. So I'll start doing this from the end of the title. So Rapise, Taya already said that this is our platform for test automation and for robotic process automation. It supports desktop, web, and mobile applications. So it makes Rapise suitable to implement solutions that are hybrid in nature, that are able to interact with different types of applications. So in one test or automation script, you may interact with the web applications, with web services, or with desktop applications as well. So this is what makes Rapise stand out. Email signatures. We'll be building a robot, so automatic script that will be extracting email signatures from email text. We'll be getting email text from Exchange server using IMAP protocol. And when we will extract these contacts, we will add them into Salesforce using UI automation. So we will use a browser to insert new contacts into Salesforce system. And what AI powered means? So this is actually a teaser of this talk, and AI powered actually means that we'll be using a third-party AI service and that performs intelligence extraction of email signatures from any text, and will be calling this service using REST API. So here is the architecture of the solution that we will build today. So Rapise is in the middle. We'll be reading emails from Exchange through IMAP protocol, and we'll be extracting signatures by calling third-party service using REST API. And after that, we will implement UI automation, and we will add new contacts or leads into Salesforce using Rapise. So this is the high-level architecture of what we will build today. So I will start building our robot. This is Rapise, and I am going to create a new test. Creating it locally. Let's call it SF test, for example. And we will be interacting with Salesforce running in a browser. So I'm choosing web cross-browser testing support here. I will use Chrome for recording of test steps. Okay, and my test will be using Rapise visual language. So what's interesting about solution that we will create? It will not require it will require almost no programming in traditional sense of this term. So we will not be writing a lot of code. So most of test logic will be implemented using Rapise visual language, and many steps will be just recorded by Rapise. So we have an empty test, and I will start from reading emails using IMAP protocol. So for this purpose, on our GitHub account, we have a repository which is called Rapise Power Pack. It contains some building blocks that can be reused by Rapise users. And here we have a Rapise mail checker component that can be used to check for emails in a mailbox using IMAP protocol on some regular basis. So actually this is just a function that we need to copy from our repository to our test. So I just select the function. Here is the function. It calls executable file that connects to Exchange server using IMAP protocol. So I'm just going to user.js file and put the function here. Also, the executable that makes the check-in, it is also included here. So I will just copy it to my test. So here is the folder of my test. Here is the full test I created before when I was preparing for the webinar. And here I have this folder. So I just copy it and copy it to my new test. Also, I have a file that contains username and passwords. So to not make them visible on the screen, I will just copy this file. This is config.json to the new test. Okay, so and we are ready to use the function that we got from Rapise Power Pack. I go to Rapise, go to RVL, and now I can just call this function here. As an object, I choose functions, and as an action, I have here check for mail, and Rapise puts all their parameters that I need to fill in this function. So here is the server name for Exchange. This is Outlook Office 365.com. The port is 993. And here I need to provide username and password. I'll be reading them from the config.json. I copied from another test. So I will add a few more lines in the beginning. And here I will create a part that reads data from this config file. If there is a config file in the root of Rapise test, then we can read values from it using global object. I use global get property, and there is a property email username in this config file. And I will assign the result of this section, get property, to a variable email username. And the result of last action is last result. And one more thing, I need to read the password as well. And here is the email password, and I create variable email password. So every cell in RVL has a drop down. So if there is anything that Rapise can suggest, it is in the drop down. So I can just choose last result here. So now I can use email username and email password as a parameters to my function. So I change the type of parameter to variable, and here I have email username, and password is a variable, and email password. Here is the folder from which to read emails. So here I have the mailbox opened, and here I created a folder Rapise where I have an email with some text. So I will use this Rapise folder to read Rapise. Subject pattern means emails with which subject are okay to process. So here I will use a regular expression. Any subject is okay. And here is the timeout. It doesn't matter what we type here. Okay, so and this function should return email body. So let's create a variable email text and put the result of the function here. And let's print this email to report. So here is the email text. So we have a tester message that prints the variable value to the report. Also, I need to do a couple of changes in the function that I copied. By default, it just processed unread messages and marks them as read. I do not need this. And also I want my email body to be in a plain text and not an HTML code. Okay, so we are ready, and I will just run my solution that should print body of the email from mailbox. Okay, this is undefined for some reason. Okay, let's take a look. So we need to check the parameters. Office 365, piece, last result. So let's check. Okay, days. This is the number of days to look back for email. So let's set 30 days here. Forgot to do this. So these are some default parameters of the function from the Power Pack. Okay, so here we have the text of email that we have in our mailbox. So here it is. Hi Sheldon. And here we have this in the report. So we completed the first step where we get data from mailbox using executable program that connects to the server using IMAP protocol. So and now we need to pass this email to a REST service to recognize signatures. So I am adding a web service definition to Rapise test. So let's call it TM. This is because this third-party solution that does signature extraction is called text miner. So I will name this REST service TM. Okay, so edit. Here is the request, and I need to so now we are going to build the request to send to the service. So let's give it a name. Get signatures. This is a post method. Here is the URL, so it remembers what I used last time. And here I need to provide the body of my email, so just to test how it works. So I copy it from the mailbox, put it here, and I need to provide a few headers to get the response. So first I need to add header accept. Returned value will be JSON. So here I type application JSON. Also, what I send to the server is just a plain text. So content type of my request is text plain. And also the service requires me to provide access token to process my request. So I will not show the value here. And let's send our request. So I send the request, and here are response headers. So we got valid response, and here is response body. So this is JSON object, and the service, if we do not provide access token, it responds with some default value. So this is not the contact from our email, but here we can see the structure of the response or of the JSON response. So every signature that is recognized has, for example, the name, the company, and we'll also be using email field for this. So we successfully executed request, so I'm going to record this request. I recorded it, and I'm going to create a script for this request. So, and this thing was added to the main test file. What I'm going to do is just to copy this generated part and place it into the user file and create a function get signatures, which accepts text and will return signatures back. So here I need to make a couple of changes. So first, here is the headers that we sent, and I didn't provide access token, so I need to provide it here. And the token is also in config file, so I'm going to read it using global get property access token. Also, what I need to supply to this request is the text of the email. So I use here set request body text. So here I provide the text. And the last thing, I need to return the value, and the value is inside. I will use the request object here, and the response is inside get response body object. So this thing should return the signature. And now we can use this function in our RVL. I'm scrolling down, and let's proceed only if we have some text in our email. So just a guard, I can use conditionals in the RVL. So here the condition is something should be set. It should be not null. So our param1, which is variable email text, should be set. Only in this case we will proceed. Okay, so now let's pass this email text to a REST service. So I use functions. Now I can choose here get signatures, and I can pass here email text, and signatures will return me some response. So let's create a variable to hold the result. Let's name it signatures, and it should hold last result. And what it makes sense to do is to create a variable with the number of entries in this array of signatures. So I create a variable count, and it's a bit tricky. The object that we have as a return of this function, this is a JSON. So to effectively work with it, we use expression type for the parameter. Expression means that we can write a JavaScript expression here. So I can use signatures length to read the length of the array of signatures that was returned by the service. And let's print the number of signatures that were recognized. So message variable count. Okay, so let's execute it. So got the message, sent to the service. Okay, so we've got 2 signatures recognized. Let's look at the email. So this is a reply to another email, and here is the reply with the signature by John Smith, CEO of TextMiner, and here is the original letter, was written by Sheldon Cooper. So we really should have 2 signatures recognized. Okay, so now let's proceed to the Salesforce. So we have signatures and we want to add them to Salesforce. So to speed up the testing, I already have login to Salesforce implemented as a building block. So let's save and close this. And this building block is a test, also created with Rapise. It is here, login to Salesforce. So let's just copy it from another test into our test folder. And I can add it to my parent test to have it in the files tree. Add files. And I am adding the test, and it is now here. It also contains RVL, so let's open it. And here is the login into Salesforce. So it reads username and password from the config file as well, and then it interacts with the browser and logs into Salesforce. So let's see how it works. So we can close this go to our RVL, and now if we have some signatures, let's make another conditional here. So if we have a number of signatures is greater than 0, so parameter 1 is count, and it should be greater than, here we have some types, predefined types for parameters, and here is the number, and it should be greater than 0. And if it is greater than 0, we should log in to Salesforce and then add our signatures. So to execute the subtest we just added, I can just drag and drop it here, and Rapise generates the line that invokes this subtest. All right, so let's execute what we have. And now Rapise should not only extract signatures, but also open the browser and log into Salesforce. So this is what Rapise is doing at the moment. It is entering credentials, and it also will navigate to the leads section. And we will continue from there. Okay. So here what we have, I already executed the test, so I have these contacts here, so let's delete them. Do some cleanup in the Salesforce. Okay. And let's record the steps that actually add new lead into the system. So I go to Rapise, to my RVL. I already have a sheet that contains a lot of statements, so I want to put the steps I will record into another sheet in this spreadsheet. So I create a new sheet. Let's name it add lead. And I will start recording of adding lead into the system. So here, by the way, in the top right corner, you can see the browser that we are currently using. Rapise is able to record from Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and is able to execute not only through its native connectors to browsers, but also using Selenium WebDriver. Okay, I start recording. Rapise enters recording mode, connects to Chrome. So first I need to select the filter to show all open leads and check if there is already such a lead in the system or not. So I do not want to add some duplicates. So I go to search this list, enter the email. Rapise records my action. So this field where I enter text is a bit tricky. So it does not provide on change event from the browser. So we will need to do some manual editing to enter the text into this field from Rapise. So entering the text is not recorded. Then let's check. Here we have a grid. I will add this grid into my test. So I press Ctrl 2. And what's interesting about Rapise, it can recognize this grid as a complex object. So because Rapise supports object repository pattern. So I added the grid. I will check that it has no rows later. And then if there are no rows, let's add a new lead. So I click on new, go to the last name, enter some value, go to company, enter some value, where I have email, enter value, and Rapise records my action. I need to press the save button here. Okay, new lead created. And let's go to the leads back. Okay, this is our created lead. I finish recording. Go to Rapise, and I can append my recorded steps. So this is the step sequence that was recorded by Rapise. So we need to perform a few tweaks to make it work. So while I remember this, let's delete this from here. A few tweaks are required to make it working. Not here, so we are entering into the search field. We are clicking on this field, but it does not accept text, so we need to send keyboard to the browser. So there is a global object, global, and it has do send keys. And here I want to specify email address, and then after entering the text I want to press enter key, okay, to submit what I did. And here we need to add a check that the grid that is displayed after we enter text here has no rows. We need to give some time for the grid to load. So here we need to provide some unconditional what we can do wait for object, and the object here will be the grid, and this section has some optional parameters. Timeout is how long to wait, maximum time to wait for object to appear, and also there is a time that we give this control after appearing in the DOM tree to completely initialize. So let's give this control 1 second, because when it is loaded it is not initialized from the very beginning. And now let's check, let's wrap this section into if statement, and our what we'll be checking here is that output is 0. So output 1 should be equal to parameter 2, and the output here should be from the grid object, and in the grid object will be calling action do get row count. So if we will go to the object tree to see where our objects are, here is the grid that we captured, and it has actions that are specific to the grid. We can read a specific cell, we can read column name, column count, and we also can determine the row count. All right, so let's check that row count is 0, and only in this case we'll be adding the new contact. Okay, so I think that I made the edits that I need, and I can test this part right away. So I do not need to start from scratch logging in into Salesforce. So I can just execute this sheet, only steps that are on this sheet. So let's try to add this lead automatically. Okay, so Rapise controls the browser, enters the text, no such lead, enter company, enter email, save, and go to delete. So it works. This is great. So let's now what we need to do is parameterize this. So currently this step sequence uses hard-coded values, but we need to use values from signature extraction service. So let's go to the main RVL, and now we are ready to loop through signatures that were recognized by this text miner service. So here I will create a variable that I will use in the loop. Let's name it index. It will start from 0. And now I can create a loop. So the first column in RVL is for the control flow. So I am creating a loop. It will be condition loop. And the condition is that one thing should be less than the other. And the first thing is index. Index should be less than the number of signatures. So here we should have count. So far so good. So now let's read our signature. I will read my signature and will put it into a variable. Since I'm calling another sheet, I need to create a global variable. And I will name it JS, global signature, and I will be reading from JavaScript object. So here I will have expression, signatures, index. So now in JS variable I have the JavaScript representation of the signature, of the JSON that we received from the REST service. And when I have this, let's execute add lead sheet at this point. So there is RVL global object and it has do play sheet, and the sheet name is add lead. And when I did this, I need to increment my loop variable. So I go here, choose increment, and the variable name is index, and I will be incrementing by 1. Okay, so now let's go to add lead and read values from JS variable. So I go here and I just need to change parameter types and values. So it should be expression JS email. Here expression JS name, expression JS company, and JS email again. So we parameterized this sheet. It now will use data that we received from the text miner. Okay, so it looks like it is ready. So we can close our browser and execute the whole solution, which now should try to enter 2 signatures. One is already added, so it should be skipped. Logging in. So what we built is actually not a test, it's more like a robot automation solution that checks, okay, what is here? We're attaching to spreadsheet. It looks like I made a mistake typing some value. So it should be capital L. And let's check one more time. It should be add lead. So I think this is the problem. And let's execute it again. So what we create is more like a robot, which is able to detect some new email in the mailbox and recognize signatures and add it to the Salesforce. It is not checking anything. Why it makes sense to add data to Salesforce using UI? Actually, Salesforce has APIs, SOAP APIs, but not all editions of Salesforce have these APIs available. So if, for example, you have Salesforce production professional, then you don't have the APIs. Also, there are some API limits in Salesforce, and if you go beyond these limits, you need to pay for additional API. If you are operating through UI, then there are no any limits. So it looks like Rapise actually added 2 new leads to the system. So this is what we actually built. So let's quickly recap what we did in this session. So we created a part in Rapise that reads email using executable file through IMAP protocol. We also created a REST service client in Rapise that sends a request to third-party REST service and gets JSON data from it. Rapise is able to parse this data and automate Salesforce through UI using browser. We can use Chrome or Firefox, any browser. And also we integrated everything together, executed, and it works. So thank you for watching this, and we are ready for questions and answers.
Thank you, Denise, for this excellent presentation and for the demonstration as well. And thank you to all the attendees for joining our webinar. Have a good day, and most importantly, happy holidays.